So hidden away down in the patch notes of update 11.8, Champagne got a buff. This is a ship that I don't see very often. I don't think you guys see it very much either. This is a tier 8 French battleship, and it's only got 6 guns and a pretty long reload, and it doesn't have the best armor. We'll look at that in port after the game when I show you the build as well, but what it does have is dispersion. The dispersion is really nice, and yeah, 15k into that GK right away feels pretty good. It's also reasonably quick, has decent concealment, and just look at that range. That's tier 10 levels of range, right? Things like Republic, things like Yamato, right, in that 26 kilometer range. It's, I think, 25 on this one, which is absolutely insane for a tier 8. And we're pretty quick too, as you can see with our speed boost. It's not a ship that wants to tank though. It is a ship that stands back and snipes. So I can understand where it's a little bit boring, and especially before its buff, which was HP, it was very, very fragile. So anytime anybody looked at you, it was a bit of a struggle. So the Champagne now has over 60k HP. It was around 52,000 before. So a pretty sizable buff to the HP. It's not going to change the playstyle, but what it does enable is you to live through a few situations where you might not have otherwise. The playstyle though, if you do have this ship and you're struggling with it, try and do like I'm doing. Use the speed to get out on a flank and then just spin around in circles. The turret traverse seems decent enough that we can do this. And I don't want to overcommit, but I also want to create an alternate angle for the enemy team to worry about. Notice we have a St. Vincent, a Kurfürst, right, over towards the A B caps, that kind of thing. I being so far south, creating some crossfires. And given that this ship has decent accuracy, they do have to respect me. I've hit the GK pretty decently, and especially the Yoshino, we got a Citadel on, so they do have to worry about me down here. Of course, a position like this wouldn't be viable without our destroyer where he is, right? We're so vulnerable to torpedoes and even submarines, right? Assuming our DD isn't so aggressive on the south as well. So that's part of the reason that it's okay to be down here. I certainly wouldn't be here if that DD was closer to, let's say where our St. Vincent is, right? Like that side of the cap. That would be a pretty bad time for us. Of course, with 406s, that's a little bit rare for the French battleships at this tier, right? They tend to have 380s. So even though we have only 6 guns, which does suck, let's be honest here, I would certainly prefer to have more. At least they're a decent caliber as well, on top of being quite accurate. So we have a little bit more overmatch to play around with. But it's really the broadside shots that you're looking for here. Overmatch is fine, but with this ship, I really do think broadsides are what we should be going for here. I really like that Wargaming is looking at some of these older ships and bringing out some balance changes to even some premium ships that are older, been in the game for a while. I think that that's a really, really good thing. There's some ships that have just been passed up over time, right? They just aren't good anymore. And there's other ships, I think they should be nerfing some premiums, to be honest. There's some overpowered ships that they instead just remove from sale. Personally, for the health of the game, I think it'd be far better to actually nerf those ships rather than just let a few select people who already owned them from playing the game 4 or 5 years ago just to keep them in their OP state. I mean, I'm saying that as someone who has a lot of those OP ships. I would rather see them just nerfed so that I can play other ships without having to worry about them. There we can see some of that excellent dispersion. We do manage to connect a couple citadels into the Yoshino. We got to turn away though right away since there's a sub around, and we don't really want to be pushing into a Montana and a Stalingrad and a Yoshino, especially in this ship. But I really like the idea of balance changes to premiums and older ships. I don't think that necessarily Wargaming is going to get it right every time when they release a ship. They do a lot of testing, but let's be honest, some ships come into the game pretty weak, and others come in far too strong. So leaving the possibility open for some of these balance changes far down the line, it's nice. Sometimes it can be a little bit disappointing how long it takes for those balance changes to come into the game, but overall, I really do like that they're doing more of these changes. And for a ship like the Champagne, I think HP is a great way to buff it. I think that having a little bit more forgiveness for making mistakes, especially into high tier, is quite nice. They didn't buff the armor though, so it's still weak to overmatch, and obviously HE is just going to tear this thing up still. And I think that's good. It is a glass cannon style of ship that needs to play at range. We're even outspotting a Stalingrad here just to show you how good the concealment is on this ship. And that's really the strength here. This is a ship that's a tier 8 that can easily play up into tier 10 games. I find myself doing pretty well in it in up tiers compared to some of the other tier 8 battleships where I dread seeing tier 10s, things like Massachusetts, Tirpitz, things that want to brawl, right? That tends not to go so well when you have half the HP of the equivalent tier 10 ship in your little tier 8 trying to brawl it out. But a sniper like this, pretty good at up tiering, so a decent premium to get if you're looking to farm credits, for example. You're not really getting as punished with those up tiers, which is kind of nice to have. Although for me personally, it's just a little too boring, right? It's fun for a game or two, but like Slava, it's just not exciting enough for me. I really enjoy those brawling experiences rather than sniping it out. Although, like I said, in a lot of tier 10 games, you do just have to snipe. So maybe it's something I just need to get used to. We're trying to support this DD here as he's taking out the submarine. Fortunately, he does manage to do that. Our depth charges get a little bit of chip damage in, but not too amazing. So far, I've noticed that the depth charges are pretty hard to hit. We talked about that in the balance changes for this patch. I don't know, man. These depth charges seem worse than before, I would say, simply because they don't have the area of effect. Sure, if you do manage to hit one directly on the sub, it does seem to do more damage than the previous ones. And maybe that's what Wargaming was going for. Maybe they saw all the memes about 20 depth charge hits and no kill on some of these submarines and thought, I know how to fix this. No, we're not going to actually balance subs. We're just going to change it so when you get a depth charge hit, it actually is going to do more damage, but it's less likely you're going to get a depth charge hit. That's maybe the conspiracy tinfoil hat, not so nice way of looking at it, but it does feel a little bit cheap with these sub changes and then announcing that subs are totally fine and they're being released into the game. I'm not a huge fan of that. I haven't talked about that, but man, that waterline was sure disappointing to watch, wasn't it? Maybe in the future, I can do a little bit more of a video on that. Maybe I can talk to some people now that I'm a CC. I haven't really had communication with Wargaming at all since becoming a CC. Just kind of been doing my own thing, right? But maybe this is a good opportunity to use this channel of communication. So let me know in the comments, maybe some questions you have. I'll try and pass those along, probably through Bogsy is my guess, since he's the guy that I've been talking to earlier. Keep in mind though, community managers, they don't really have much say. They're just there to relay a lot of information, clarify things. So it's unlikely anything will change. We all know that CCs aren't here to actually change the game or to provide feedback that's going to be taken into account by the developers. We're really here to play the ships just to show them to you guys. That's what being a CC is, and I understand that, but maybe I can get a little bit more clarification on why now submarines are just fine, even though there's balance changes going in. But aside from that, submarine rant done for this video at least. We're brawling a Stalingrad, and this is really not going to go well. We do manage to not take citadels somehow when we're flat broadside. Magical French armor. It's either black hole or the little bit of turtleback managed to work, but yeah, the GK even at range hitting our stern is more than enough to overmatch and do some pretty good damage. And of course, Stalingrad just has improved pen angles, so if we're getting both of our turrets off on the Stalingrad, yeah, we're gonna take a huge amount of AP damage. So I just need to run away. Our team has basically won this game at this point. The enemy team is pushing down from sea and dying to our massive death ball here. Interestingly, they're in a perfect formation to deal with a carrier. There's no carrier in this game, so I'm not sure how that worked out, but yeah, we're gonna win this game. But it's really interesting to show how weak this ship is when it gets into a brawl, especially against some higher tier ships, right? The Stalingrad is just tearing us apart. That's why I'm running away as fast as I can, just to show a bit of the weakness here. I think the strength of this ship is pretty solid though, as far as tier 8 firepower goes. The accuracy is probably unmatched for the tier 8 battleships. Even North Carolina isn't getting this kind of accuracy, certainly not this shell velocity, although the volume of fire on the NC and the overall slightly tankier package might be more fun for me personally. As far as a sniper goes, Champagne is it for a tier 8 battleship, and I think that this buff is good. I think it's a really, really good one that doesn't really negate the weaknesses of this ship, right? It still struggles in these brawls, as we've seen, but it does allow you to get away, right? Without that HP buff, I probably end up dying to that Stalingrad there. I probably don't manage to get away, which is nice that I was able to get this little extra bit of life out of the Champagne. We're trying to run away as fast as we can with this speed boost, right? So while I'm not a huge fan of the Champagne, and I do like this buff, let me know what you think about the Champagne if you have it in the comments down below. I'm curious what you guys think of this buff. Of course, there's some other buffs that came with this update to ships, like the Jinan got a reload buff, so I'll have to take a look at that one again, as well as the Italian battleships, right? That one is a little bit different, right? Since they're buffing the ability to swap shells a little bit better with this new expert loader. Maybe I'll go more in depth on the new expert loader as well when I do that Italian battleship video, but for now, yeah, I really like the new expert loader. If you've played around with it at all, it's so convenient because you no longer have to consider where your reload is at when swapping shells. You just swapped whatever shell you'd like to, and you're not really being punished for it unless you're below that minimum shell swap time, right? Which is really nice. I really, really do enjoy it. Here you can see the overmatch being a little bit useful on this Stalingrad, and the reasonable accuracy allowing us to pin his nose, his upper nose. If you're wondering, that's really where you want to be aiming for on a Stalingrad, at least at closer ranges as a battleship. That's going to get you the best damage. A lot of full pens happen through there. So another 5k, that's 160k damage in a tier 10 game. Where we had to snipe quite a bit. That is the strength of this ship, but a lot of battleships would probably struggle. I think a lot of tier 8s would struggle at these ranges to even impact the game, get any damage, that sort of thing. So it's a pretty good sign for something like the Champagne. So a little bit like the ship, the build is a little bit boring as well. So we are running gun feeder, we are running grease the gears, since there's really not much here. Maybe brisk, but I find this ship fast enough already. But you could definitely run brisk. I just like the ability to turn my turrets very quickly in it, since you saw I was just kind of spinning in circles down on the south side of the map and constantly trying to dodge, make myself hard to hit, while also providing a really good crossfire. Adrenaline rush, awesome. Concealment, awesome, right? Emergency repair expert, awesome. I don't know why Wargaming wants to recommend Furious here and super heavy AP. I guess because you're supposed to stand so far back that you're never going to see the downsides of them. But it's odd because I don't think Furious is a good skill, because you're going to get baited into leaving a fire burning on your ship because you're thinking, oh, look at I'm getting a 5% faster reload. This is great. When actually just letting yourself die sooner. So I think that's bad overall. Just use the standard build is standard for a reason, in my opinion. It's just good in most situations. Here's the upgrades, pretty standard stuff. Obviously going accuracy. The accuracy is everything here. You probably don't need a spotter plane, but fighters are so useless that you may as well take it here. Of course, the range is just absurd, so you know, that's why, right? 25 kilometers of very usable range given the shell velocity. But like I mentioned, yeah, the armor's bad. If you haven't seen it, 25 millimeter bow on a tier 8 battleship. So, and stern. So not the best, as well as only 32, which 32 is fine, right? That's a lot of the French battleship line has 32. But yeah, this bow and stern is pretty concerning, especially at closer ranges. So that's why you notice I am pretty much always trying to keep an angle like this so battleships try to shoot here. Hopefully they don't get full pens into this weird deck here, but it's not a tanky ship. It's not a tanky ship, but it is a solid one. It's a really good sniper. So if you're into that, I think this is a great ship, and the buff has only been a good thing. I don't think it's going to make it OP. I think it just allows you to make a little bit more mistakes, a little bit more leeway when it comes to tier 10 games, and it still plays basically the same. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.